sixth day of Yuva Education Week celebrations. We have had some wonderful, energetic, insightful, game changing conversations over the last few days. And today we have Mr. Suresh Ramurthy ji. Mr. Suresh Ramurthy is a senior mentor and an executive coach. He has over 3 decades of facilitation and coaching experience. He has handled coaching as a leadership development initiative and building coaching as a culture in global organization. He has coached many senior leaders, is a solution architect for non-technical solutions, and has a facilitated leadership programs for many senior corporate leaders. He is certified in applied neuroscience, has done a lot of study on how the brain operates and uses it in coaching leaders. He is a member of International Association of Professional Life Coaches and a founder member, former president of International Coach Federation Chennai chapter. He has over 3,000 hours of coaching, trained more than 70 coach trainees for coach certification, and has done mentor coaching for many coach trainees. He is also certified in different behavior analysis tools like DISC, MBTI, PAPI, Shally, and has the following certifications to his name: Credential Coach for International Coach Federation, Applied Neuroscience in Coaching, Social Cognitive Neuroscience Accredited Coach, CPBA, that is Certified Professional Behavior Analysis, Marshall Goldsmith Certified Facilitator and Coach, Accredited MBTI Coach, Certified PAPI Coach and Facilitator, Certified MRA, that is 360-degree Feedback Coach and Facilitator, Certified Charlie Coach, and Franklin Covey Certified Facilitator. With over 35 years of experience and 3,000 plus hours of coaching experience, Suresh ji has managed a couple of CEOs, and in his last role in Cognizant, he was managing multiple leaders and Cognizant purely on one-on-one coaching basis. My personal interaction with Suresh ji has also been, you all see the photograph when I put off my video. That is called Purna Vidya. The organization survived the COVID pandemic, and Suresh ji is responsible for having built a framework in which the organization runs, on independent on its own, and it is based on that framework that many changes have been done to the way an organization succeeds. So, without further ado, welcoming Suresh ji, a coach, a facilitator, a good friend, and a change maker in this world. Welcome, Suresh ji. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the generous introduction, Vinodji, and namaste to all of you here. And it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here this evening. And thanks for the opportunity to share some thoughts on how coaching can help in people development in the current situation. So, as indicated, coaching has been my passion for many, many years now. And I thought I'll use that to share some thoughts on what's happening in the coaching space, how coaching can help, and how coaching has helped in some of the cases that I have worked with very senior leaders in the corporate world. So, before I dwell into understanding how coaching can help, I want to spend some time to talk about where are we today in terms of environment. Why is coaching relevant today? And how can coaching be used as an intervention for people development? Let's rewind a little and understand where are we in terms of the environment. We have been talking about the VUCA world for some time, a world which is characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. A lot of changes are happening around the world. Everything is volatile. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. And that's where the volatility is. Very often, corporates are struggling to find out where is the next buck coming from. Where is the next market? Who is the next customer? Which geography should I operate? And the moment you step into that geography, there's some problem there. You have to move to another geography. So I'm required as a senior management to start looking at multiple geographies at the same time, keep changing my strategies, keep changing my policies so that I'm able to understand, estimate where the market is moving. Strategically, organization leaders are finding it very difficult to predict where are they likely to move. So it's very, very volatile now. Added to that is the uncertainty. There's nothing certain about what's happening in the market space. Take any landscape, be it education, be it industry, there is a lot of uncertainty around us. We don't know where things are heading to. Where is the economy moving? What could be the government policy? Is the government policy pro-industry or anti-industry? Where are we going now? What is the competition likely to do? Will I be taken over by some other organization? Is there going to be some global organization coming into India? If that happens, what happens to my future? Today we are talking about many organizations, many groups stepping into India and trying to take over some companies in India. That's what you're reading. So I don't really know what is the certainty I have in running my business, be it any field. Added to that is the complexity. Everything around me is complex. I don't see much of scope in coming out something with a simple solution. Okay, let me solve this problem and move on. By the time I solve the problem, I'm into another problem much bigger than the earlier problem, which gets magnified. So that's the way I am. So any solution that I find today to the problem that I have on hand, I'm finding that inadequate because there is a bigger problem waiting for me tomorrow morning. And nothing is clear. There's a lot of ambiguity around us. No clarity in the way things are moving. When you look at government, not much of clarity in the policies. When you look at the direction in which the organization moves, direction in which market is moving, there's no clarity. I do some work in strategy formulation, implementation, organization. I primarily teach and implement strategies. When I sit with senior leaders, that's what I'm hearing. I'm not able to have a long-term plan, which will pause and tell you that I'm 90%, 80% sure that this will work. Very difficult for them to estimate that. Because by the time they have a plan, things have changed. The environment has changed. That's what we've been talking about as a VUCA world. And now today, the whole thing has been exaggerated, magnified by the advent of COVID. With COVID coming in, look at what has happened to the landscape. It's even more volatile, a lot more complex, tremendous levels of uncertainty and ambiguity. So this is where we are living right now. And we have no choice but to wade through this. Our new normal has changed now. COVID has increased the intensity of the VUCA environment in which we were operating last year or the year before. Today, we are even more uncertain. Even tomorrow seems to be a big question mark before us, and that's where we are today. Now, given this environment, what's required of us? What are the challenges before us? What are people struggling with today? The questions before people are, the future is unknown. We thought we have scaled COVID, and now we are hearing a new variant of COVID coming in. That has pushed the clock back now. And again, uncertainty comes in. What will happen? What will be the enormity of the new variant of COVID? Nobody seems to be knowing about it. Even the earlier version of COVID, we haven't really formed an opinion. We haven't got a solution. By the time we get there, we are into this. The working environment has changed drastically. Look at the way organizations work. All of us have moved to virtual mode. Look at the education sector. People have been moving into, children have been moving into using laptops, tablets, and mobile phones to learn. Teachers have to come out with new ways of teaching now. Gone are the days when using the blackboard and chalk. Now those are all gone. They have to find new ways, new software, and new methodologies by which they can engage the students. Now, how do I engage the student 8 hours a day without boring them? Because one, it's going to be a strain on the eye for somebody to sit idle before a computer for 8 hours with nobody to talk to. So my methodology of teaching has to change. My interaction methodology has to change. So if you take every field like this, if you take software, if you take manufacturing, every field you find that the world around us has changed to a new normal. We are not the same as what we used to be. So we need to quickly adapt ourselves to new ways of thinking. But what is the challenge here? I have to think about a new way, but presently I'm cluttered. It's common knowledge that when your mind is cluttered, you just cannot think. There will not be any clarity in your thinking, in your procedure, or in your process if your mind is cluttered. When I have a VUCA world, when I'm operating in a VUCA world with so much of uncertainty, ambiguity, and so on, coupled by the uncertainty brought in by COVID, I'm even more confused, even more cluttered. With all of that, how do I declutter myself? So that's the challenge before us. Now, with all this given, people have to get to the desired outcome in the change environment. Organizations want the same kind of revenue with lesser people, with the same kind of environment. Now, when the environment changes, I don't know if the environment changes, I don't care about it, but I want the same revenue. Because if they don't have the same revenue, they can't manage business, they'll be out of business. So, how do I manage that? I need to come out with creative ways, and everything has to happen right now. It can't be tomorrow morning. If I come out with a new methodology of teaching something to a child, my company is going to look at me, he's going to come with something better than this. So, how do I outthink him? Any field that you are in, you can win only if you outthink your competition. And today, outthink has to be done extremely fast. Otherwise, you're out of business in no time. Now, how do I come out with creative ways? Again, remember that my mind is cluttered. How do I outthink this person? There is a need, very urgent need to declutter our thinking. All the people want ways to achieve the goals given the challenge around them. Now, how can they get there? Fundamentally, they need to be changing their mindset. They need to be moving to a different mindset to approach the problem. There are various mindsets, theories around mindsets in literature. They need to move to something like a growth mindset or optimism mindset. Why is mindset important? That's because mindset influences behavior and behavior influences outcome. So if we can work on the mindset, we can influence people's behavior. When we can influence people's behavior, we can possibly help them to get to the outcome that they want to get to. So when one can influence the mindset, then they can possibly get more clarity in the thinking. When the thinking becomes a lot more clearer, they can possibly think about options that are there before them. When they can identify the right options, they can possibly find out which is the option that will take them to the outcome that they are looking for. Fundamentally, we need to work on the mindset. And I can't work on the mindset if I'm not clear about it. And that's where coaching comes in. Coaching is a facilitative process where you partner with the client, work on creative thinking, and find out ways by which the client can achieve the outcome in creative ways. Can I think of better ways by which I can approach the problem? Can I have somebody driving the thinking? Can I have somebody possibly lending me a different, another brain? Can I have somebody who will act as a mirror for me? Who possibly tells me, Suresh, are you right here? Because remember, I always remember Roger Federer. When somebody went and asked Roger Federer, why are you having a coach? You are the best in the world. The simple answer Roger Federer gave was, I can't see myself when I'm playing. I can't see the mistakes that I'm making when I'm playing. I want somebody to point that out to me. And that can be done only by a different pair of eyes. So a coach can be that pair of eyes to look at you and understand, help you understand where can you improve, what mindset can you move to. When you change your mindset, a small change in mindset can change your behavior. Let me give you an example. When we talk of mindset, there are two mindsets that we fundamentally talk about. As an example, there are many mindsets, but here I'm taking two just for illustrative purpose. This is from David Rock, who has done a lot of work in neuroscience. We talk of problem mindset, we talk of solution mindset. When somebody is in a problem mindset, look at the kind of responses you will get. If you ask a person, why was this not delivered? If I'm operating from a problem mindset, my response will be, this was not delivered because A did not give me the input. B did not support me. C should have given me this by 5 o'clock. He didn't give me by 5 o'clock. So when you are operating from a problem mindset, you will get excuses for not doing something. But when you move to a solution mindset, where the fundamental question changes, instead of asking, why did you not deliver? Change the question. What can help you deliver? What can you do to deliver this on time? When you change that question, the answers cannot be excuses. I'm not going to tell you this person did not give me the input. The answer would be, one of the answers would be that I would possibly seek the help of A, seek the help of B, and move on. So you will start getting solutions or options that will help the client reach the outcome or the goal that he or she wants to get to. That's what the coach can do. So the coach essentially helps you to change the question. Instead of asking yourself, why did you not deliver? Ask yourself, what can help you deliver? So when the coach starts working with the client, he drives you to start thinking differently. He looks at you to start looking at it from a different mindset. There are many mindsets that theory talks about. Some of them are, let's say you are in a growth mindset where learning is what is driving you. You want to be on up the learning curve all the time. Or it could be hope. It could be optimism. It could be more awareness about yourself, self-awareness. Or it could be the locus of control that you have. Or it could be self-efficacy. Can I move the self-efficacy of this person? Positivity in believing that I can get the outcome. Can I move that meter a little more? If I can help this person get to a higher level of self-efficacy, he can be more confident in achieving what he wants to achieve. So if I take, let's say, I take 4 or 5 mindset, I push him to a growth mindset. Start looking at what are the learnings you've got from your past experience. How can you apply the learning in your current situation? You have been successful in an earlier avatar. You have been successful before COVID. How were you successful there? What were the learnings that you got from there? How would you apply that learning in today's situation? If you have to take one step forward to get to the solution, what would that step be? Now remember, all these questions are pushing into a solution mindset. I'm not going to ask him, why did you fail? Tell me 10 reasons why you failed. Tell me 15 reasons what you did not do well. That's not going to help. Push him forward. If I move him to a self-efficacy, I'm helping him to believe that he can achieve the results, which will improve his confidence level. If I move him to locus of control, if I work on that mindset, I'll possibly help him to understand what are all those factors that are in my control. Environment is not in my control, fair enough. But what is in your control? There could be something in your control. Maybe your own capability is in your control. You can upskill yourself, that's in your control. You can come out with a new creative strategy, that's in your control. So instead of thinking about what is not in your control and worrying about it, can you look at your locus of control? What is there in your control that you can work on, which will help you achieve the outcome? You can work on that mindset. Likewise, hope, likewise, optimism. Or if many people, because of the challenges they are in, they move into victim mindset. Nothing will work for me. I'm doomed. I'm destined to fail. So the confidence level goes down. The coach, with his conversation or facilitation, can help him move up in terms of his mindset. When the mindset moves up, now he is now positive. Now try and find out how you can influence his behavior. Generally, in coaching, we work on 2 behaviors. One behavior, which we call as thriving behavior, behavior that helps you as an individual to move up. And the other one where you talk about enabling behaviors, inspiring behaviors, where you work with the other people and help them up. So when we work with clients, we work on these 2 behaviors. What are those behaviors I can help him achieve or improve upon so that he feels a lot more confident? We broadly talk about four categories there. Behaviors that are social. How do I connect with people? How do I show empathy towards people? How do I establish good relationship with people? Or it could be cognitive behavior. What is my cognitive thinking? How do I focus? How do I plan strategically? It's all about thinking. How do I change my thinking depending on the situation? Rather than going to victim mindset, can I change my thinking? Okay, I have no control over what's happening now. The environment has changed. Now the education system has changed. The way I deliver my lessons have changed. There's no point brooding over it. Now, how do I solve this problem? Move into that mindset and that behavior. So when we work on that behavior, cognitive behavior, he starts thinking different. Likewise, emotional behavior. What kind of control do you have in your emotion? When things go out of control, emotional regulation goes for a walk. Sometimes the emotional part of the brain takes over rather than the rational or cognitive part of the brain. When the emotional part of the brain takes over, your decisions are driven by emotions, not driven by rational thinking. When you sense that in the client as a coach, you start working on him and move his thinking to cognitive, right? So decision making happens at a cognitive level, at a rational level rather than at an emotional level. Start helping him to regulate his emotions. Start working on your resilience and find out how we can stay without swaying when there is a change in situations around him. Or it could be physical, where what kind of physical fitness are you working on? How much of rest are you taking? When you're overwrought by the situation around you, you tend to brood over it and you tend to lose your sleep. When you lose your sleep or when you don't take adequate rest, you are not in a position to think. Help him to understand, realize that. Some of these behaviors are the ones that we work on when we are in coaching and help him to really push himself up in terms of motivating himself. Oh, yeah, I think I can achieve it. So, when I've worked on the mindset, now he is ready to receive inputs from me. Then I work on the self behaviors that will drive him, driving behaviors. Then I work on now that you are very confident, now that you are in growth mindset, now that you are in optimism mindset, I know I can achieve this. I know what is under my control. I know what I'm capable of. I think I can pull off. I think I can come out with something different. Now I'm feeling very confident. Now, what's the next thing required? How do I enable people around me to feel as confident as I am? So we work on certain behaviors which help people to work with the others. Three areas I generally work on are behaviors that help you motivate the others, behaviors that help guiding the others, and behavior that help including or connecting the others, which means I help people to find ways by which they can stay motivated. There are going to be challenges. I am motivated. It's not enough that I am motivated. I need to have my team also motivated. If my team is not motivated, I'm going to have a challenge because whatever decisions I come with, they are not going to implement it. So I need to help them to stay motivated. So that's where the motivating behavior comes in. How do I empower them? How do I recognize them? Then we talk of guiding behaviors. What can I do to help them solve problems? How can I help them in finding ways out of situations in which they are in a tight corner? How can I support them in whatever they're doing? Likewise, get into some relationship behaviors. How can I build my relationship with the others? How can they trust me and be with me in the situation which I'm in? So when all of us are together, are in a mindset which is positive, are in a solution mindset, all of us are propelling ourselves and say, yeah, we can achieve results. And all of us are working together as a team, you can possibly get to the outcome that you want to get to. So individually, and that's what we do as a coach. We help these people working on these areas. Now, what is the process we use here? Remember, when I started, I said people are generally cluttered. They don't even know where to get to. So to start with, we try to understand what is that you're chasing. Are you clear about the goal post that you want to get to? So even there, people have challenges. They may be chasing multiple goalposts. If they have, which is natural in some cases, which is the priority now? So this is a process of decluttering the thinking. Help them to understand what is that they want to achieve. Can you prioritize your goals? What is it you want to focus on to start with? Then look at ways by which they can creatively think to achieve the goals that they have. Once they get clarity of goal, then look at where are you today? The current state in which you are in, what are the challenges you have right now? Given what you have, given who you are, what is the gap between what you have and what you need for you to get to the goal? It could be gaps in skills, it could be gaps in resources, it could be gaps in capability, it could be gaps in behavior. Help him to slowly unravel that one after the other. So when he's clear about the goal, then he starts looking at, for me to achieve the goal, what is it I have? What is it I should have? And work with him slowly. Slowly start believing, oh, okay, fine. Let us understand. If this is what you need to achieve, what is the skill you need to have? Slowly help him understand one after the other. And then when he's clear about the skill gap or the capability gap or the behavior gap, he knows what he needs to do to get to the goal. At all times, he is cognizant of what is in his control and what is not in his control. When it comes to what is not in his control, moving to a solution mindset and say, what can you do about what you're not in control? For instance, today, I have to do everything virtual. That's not in your control. You may say, I'm extremely comfortable doing sessions in person, but that's not going to happen today. Given that that's the new normal, what is in your control now? What's in my control is I can build the capability for me to do virtual sessions. I can enhance my technology capabilities. I can have resources, maybe a studio inside my house, which will help me to project myself when I do sessions. Any of those things are in my control. Start working on what is in your control, which can help you. So once the goal is defined, help him to slowly figure out what is it you have, which is understanding my current reality. When I'm very clear about my own reality, I know what is required for me to get to the goal. Then I work on the gap between where I am and where I need to be. When this gap is understood, then work on the gap. What does it take for you to bridge the gap? Again, look at all the things that he needs to do to bridge the gap, and also help him understand, if you bridge the gap, how confident are you that you will get to the outcome? Again, if there is a clutter there, remove the clutter so that he knows, if I do this, I'm going to get this. Then work on how do you get to what you want to do. Start working on each of those options that he talks about. Which of these are feasible? Which of these are not feasible? Which of these are under control? Which of these are not under control? And when you start working on each of those options, you start getting clarity on the road ahead. When he starts implementing them, he will get to the goal that he wants to get to. While in that conversation, you also help him to unravel the roadblocks that he may possibly look at. Help him to step into the future a little more to understand, what do you think could be the roadblocks or challenges you will face, which will hold you back from achieving your outcome. Let him foresee that. If they get to foresee that, we are helping him to overcome that. What kind of mitigation plan would you have by which you can overcome these roadblocks? And then you can ask him to see what are the support system he wants to have to move further. Broadly, that's the coaching process we use. When we go a little deeper, we also get into multi-brain integration techniques, where research says that we have three brains which are identified. The head brain, which all of us are familiar with, there is a heart brain and there's a gut brain. It's common for most of us to say, okay, I knew it will not work. Somehow I felt that it will not, this option will not work. Somehow I felt I will not do well in this exam. Somehow I felt I will not do well in the presentation. All this mean that your heart was not aligned with your head. Head was thinking about a solution. The heart was feeling that head and heart were not aligned. Similarly, something in me told me that this will not work, which means somewhere your gut feeling is that this option will not work. High level of coaching is where we start helping the client to align these three brains. Understand, identify the difference between your heart thinking, your heart, your head, and your gut. Once you understand the disconnect between these three, find out ways by which you can bring the connect between these three. When you work on that connect, when you get the synchrony between what the head is feeling, what the heart is feeling, and what the gut is feeling, then when the alignment happens, you are more holistic in your decision making. That's another level of coaching that is normally done. When that happens, because head is where the thinking happens, heart is where the feeling happens, and gut is where the identity is, where courage comes from the gut, compassion comes from the heart, thinking comes from the head. Sometimes our decisions are head based, and sometimes they're heart based, sometimes they're gut based. And all of us, as a culture, research says that most of us are, especially Asians, are head based culture. We don't put most of our heart into our decisions. So, if you are sensing this could help, suppose there is a dilemma that people have, you could sense it and possibly help this person. Recently, I was working on one case where a person was changing roles. He was into corporate world and he wants to move into academics. It's a total paradigm shift for him. Is it right for me to move there or not? Was the question before. Now, what does the heart tell you? What does the head tell you? You walk him through the process. In the process, the person understands what is the best way before him. Likewise, I've worked with cases where people who are working in the corporate world want to shift and start their own business. When these kind of life-changing decisions are being taken, we can move to a higher level of coaching where we talk about the alignment between head, heart, and gut. So coaching essentially is, like I said earlier, a methodology by which you work with the client. Find out very easy now. What kind of clutter is he going through? How can I help him declutter his thinking? When the decluttering happens, when the path is clear and the goal is clear, the person achieves the results. So help him define the goal, help him define the path towards the goal, help him understand the current reality, and help him facilitate his thinking, moving from where he is to where he wants to go. And in the process, if there is a requirement for alignment between head, heart, and gut, help him in the process. These are some ways by which I work as a coach in trying to help the client to achieve the outcome that they want to achieve. It can be any field. I work with leaders in various fields, and the process is the same. Any coach, for that matter, can work on these processes. And when this coaching happens, you will find, you will see a needle movement in the thinking of the client and helping the client move across along the line towards the continuum which leads into the outcome. And that's where the clients will start seeing a wow movement. When he starts appreciating results, maybe it's delta, slowly starting to see results, the clutter goes away. The thinking becomes a lot better. When that thinking happens, you will see this person feeling more confident to getting to where he wants to get. So essentially, we work on the mindset, we work on the behaviors, and we work on the outcomes. So when the mindset is positive, the behaviors are enabling behaviors. When the behaviors are enabling and thriving, then the outcomes are going to be positive. So broadly, that's how we work. Work on the mindset, work on the behaviors, and help the client achieve the outcome. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And Dr. Vinod, are there any questions? I'll take those questions.
Thank you, Sureshi.
Thank you very much.
I was able to draw in many things that you try to make a change in many organizations. And now the session is open to questions, everybody. I would like to ask you the first question, Sureshi.
Yes.
When it comes to coaching, there is this perception um, and resistance in people of how useful can it be. And in India, personally, when people look at coaching, as an investment versus coaching as a cost, how do you propose on the consumer side that barrier be broken? And how do you would you like to suggest one or two cases that had a while I know many of these things, it's for the benefit of the audience. Would you like to suggest some of the cases which can throw out that barrier?
Okay, good one. Okay, where is the thinking coming from? The thinking is coming from the use of the word coaching. Okay, coaching is normally used when you think that somebody is deficient in something. And that's where it comes from. When I say you have to go for a coaching class or a tuition class, the child feels I'm not good at something. You go for math tuition, you go for IIT coaching. That is always thought of to be a supplementary activity to enhance my capability. IIT coaching, I'm already good in my school, but there needs something extra I need to work on for me to clear or crack the IIT exam. That's how coaching is understood. And unfortunately, in India, which I don't see in the West when I travel for coaching, coaching is a misuse, abuse word because I use NIT coaching, JET coaching, IAS coaching. What they do is teaching and using coaching as the word. That's why when you go to a corporate, this I've experienced as an ICF president. When I go to corporates and help them to look at coaching, they said, we are good at it. We are not deficient in anything. Why do you want to coach me? So what we generally do is we do an awareness session where we tell them what can you benefit and how can you benefit from coaching. Do maybe a pilot session for them, maybe the HR head or the BU head, and tell them, are you seeing benefits from maybe one or two sessions I'm doing for you? So once they understand the benefit of coaching, then they're bought into it. So because of the common understanding or misunderstanding of the term coaching, people find it very difficult to really take up coaching in the first instance. But that's changed from maybe from the last 5, 6 years, right? From 2015, when coaching really started taking center stage in India to now. It's really changing now. Still not as good. I know people in the US, coaches, who are having only that as a line of income. We still aren't there. I am a coach, a consultant, a teacher, a trainer, everything. Only then I can meet my expenses. We still haven't gone to coaching as a mainstream activity. But there's a lot of movement that has happened, a lot of appreciation that has happened, but it's very small. If you look at organizations, global organizations are a lot more open to appreciating coaching because they're seeing their counterparts in the West who have appreciated coaching. So embracing coaching in India becomes easier. Whereas Indian bred organizations or SMEs, MMEs, they find it very difficult to embrace. Because for them, coaching is, I am good at everything. What do you know about my industry? I have to tell them, I don't know about your industry. I'm not here to teach you your skills. I'm here to work on your mindset, behavior, and outcome, which has got nothing to do with technical skills. When that message is given to them, and when I make them understand, I'm working on this side, not on the technical side, not on the expertise, then they try to understand. Wherever their line of business aligns with my area of expertise, I give them input. For example, strategy formulation. If they want coaching in the strategy area, I would possibly give them inputs there. Otherwise, I strictly work on mindset, skill set, and so slowly, to answer your question, people are moving it from cost mindset to a value adding mindset. But that's extremely slow. I guess next few years it will really change. Thank you for that question, Raj.
Everybody, you can ask any questions that you may have. I have tons of questions, so I'll continue while everybody gets to the questions. Um, Sureshji, there is another perspective in the coaching industry of going back to this HR tool, which earlier we used to use, where there is a blind spot in my head. Let's say, take my example, right? I have a blind spot about my attitude or my traits,
Mm.
which is probably a limiting factor in my life, right?
Okay.
Um, how does coaching help in achieving that blind spot, and is there a way to kind of open up the blind spot before we start the coaching, so that when the candidate comes in, candidate comes in with more acceptance towards the coach? So
Absolutely.
what are some of such methods that can be applied to the industry, and it will really help gather many people get help?
Okay. So coaching is not done to an industry, it's done to a person. The one that I'm working right now, I do sessions with a group of leaders in organizations. That's the present coaching engagement I'm working with. There are two methods I've used to identify the blind spot. One, I've asked them, I don't know if many of you may be familiar with a tool called Johari Window. I've asked them to get inputs from at least three respondents on what they feel right or good about you, what they feel are your areas of improvement. This is one exercise I've asked each participant, each leader to do and come back to me. One. Second thing is, before the start of this, I've asked them to do a 360-degree feedback. I've given them a questionnaire and asked them to do a 360 on certain parameters, on some 20 parameters. They're supposed to get feedback from three respondents, one level above them, one level at their level, one person at their level, one person or two people below them, at least three, or any number more than three. One supervisor, one at their level, one or two people below their level. So they get a 360-degree view of what their blind spots are, what are the areas of development as seen by the others. Some of these I wouldn't have perceived. For instance, one case which I was coaching today was he's a person who is very direct in his communication, where he says, Suresh, I want A, B, C to be done. He gives instructions to his direct report. But you are surprised to get a feedback from the direct report saying that Suresh is very rude. Suresh is very directive. He does not give me space to share my ideas. Whereas my intention was I want no ambiguity in the instruction, so I give direct instruction. But his perception was I don't give him the space for ideation. Now that's an input for me. That's a blind spot. I need to find ways by which I can give space for ideation and include him in the ideation process. That's a learning for him. So in this coaching process today, in the conversation that I had this morning, I was asking him, what do you read from that report? What do you think are the inputs that have come in from the respondents? How do you reflect to that input? Do you think that is an area of improvement for you? What would happen if you improve in that area? Again, stay in the solution mindset. Help him to understand if you improve, what will happen to your outcome? What will happen to relationship with the others? What will happen to the way you are working in terms of your clarity, your enthusiasm? And then you help them to understand the way forward. So I use my the assessment techniques to really get them to do some assessment, use the assessment results for debriefing and helping them to achieve the results that they want to achieve. Does that answer your question, Raji?
Yes, very much. Thank you. Um, there is a question
One,
from Ms. Meenakshi.
yes.
Hi, what's the difference between mentoring and coaching? Is coaching also similar to following Vygotsky's ZPD? I don't know.
Okay. Let
I'm
me,
not sure if
I'll
that's,
take, I'll take the first question.
yeah,
Second question, I need some help.
yeah.
First question is, mentoring is where you come from your level of expertise. Where in mentoring, I talk about the way I have gone through. And this is what I have done. You may want to try this. If it works, good for you. If it doesn't work, then let us work on a different one. So mentoring always comes from a level of expertise that I have gone through. I'm going to share my best practices with you. If that works for you, well and good for you. If it doesn't work, then you start operating, which means I come from a level of expertise. Whereas in coaching, I stay away as far as possible. I stay away from uh, solutioning or prescripting anything. I allow the coachee to find answers to the questions that the coachee has. The fundamental belief in coaching is the client has all the answers. I'm going to help or facilitate the client to find answers to the questions that the coach client himself has. Whereas in mentoring, I come from my level of experience. I say, this is what can be done, and you can do it this way. So if you look at all of us, we operate in two paradigms. One is a thinking paradigm and the execution paradigm. Somebody does the thinking and somebody does the execution. In mentoring, the mentor does the thinking and the mentee does the execution. I have thought through the solution and you do it. Whereas in coaching, the coach facilitates the client to think about the solution and also execute. So the movement of thinking from the coach to the coachee happens in coaching, whereas the thinking happens with the mentor and the execution happens with the mentee. So that's fundamentally the difference between mentoring and coaching. Does that help?
So I'm just also putting up my screen for something that the second question that Meenakshi ji asked. Can you see the screen?
Okay.
Yeah. So ZPD seems to be the zone of proximal development. What needs to be done to take the learner where he needs to be, and zone of achieved development where the learner is right now. So, uh, I mean, I think what I can do is at the center where the learner is right now, and what I can't do is so zone of the proximal development seems to be at the center. With this, will you be able to take the second question?
Okay. Now, there's something called circle of concern and circle of influence, almost similar to this. Circle of control is what I can do, which I know that I can do. Circle of uh, concern is what I can't do. That's not in my control. When I talked about the locus of control, I talked about what is that in your control that you can do. This is what I can do. I can acquire the skills. I can buy a laptop. I can set up a studio in my house. But I can't tell the government to change it and allow people to be in the class. Second one is circle of influence, which is aligned to what can I do with self, where I can't do everything myself. For example, I have certain skills which I'm very good at. Let's say that I can buy a laptop, I have the resources, I can buy the software. I don't know how to make a PowerPoint, or I don't know how to make a movie file, but I can get possibly, I am not good at marketing. I have to reach my product to the marketplace. I'm not good at that. So I will take the help of Vinodji and tell him, this is my product. These are the salient features of my product. And these are the things that possibly will add value to the customer. Please help me with marketing this product. So I can do that reaching of the market with the help of somebody like Vinodji, who is an expert in that space. Third is what I can't do. Right? So you don't have to worry about what you can't do. Stay with the locus of control, like Marcus Buckingham talks about. First, focus on your strength, then look at weakness areas, and then try to develop the weakness areas. Presently, I don't even look at my strengths because I'm cluttered in my thinking. Can I declutter myself and start focusing on, okay, forget about all this. Let me start with a clean state. Let me start with the inner circle. What can I do now? Now, that decluttering is where the coach can come and help. Okay, Suresh, let's do this. Let's get to the whiteboard, both of us. Now, assuming that this is the environment given to you, you have to handle your classes in virtual mode. Let's start from a clean slate. Let's brainstorm this together. With all resources that you have, what can you do now? Now I'm pushing this person to get out of the clutter and start looking at this very, very rationally. These are things you can do very good. What can you do differently? If you have to add something to this, what would that be? If you have to add some competitive advantage to it, if you have to put in some flavor which will help you make this more attractive, which will help the students hold on to that class, what would that be? Keep pushing him further and further to improve on his product. Now, when I get his locus of control in areas where he is good at and he's got expertise, he will start thinking about better ways of doing things. Otherwise, he gets lost. Okay, I can't do this. The whole world is against me. My fate is like this. I am doomed. So you start getting to a victim mindset where you start blaming. You are low on self compassion, where I'm too hard on myself. And finally, you'll find that you'll have no solution to solve the problem. Whereas when you move in as a coach, you start helping him to getting to a right mindset and focus on what he can control, what I can do. And once you focus on what I can do and start unraveling that slowly one after the other, he will start seeing clarity in the path forward. When the path is clear, then he can get to the outcome that he wants to get to. Does
Thank
that
you,
help?
Dr. Suresh. I think I can equate Lord Krishna as the coach to Arjuna in the war field if I can
Yeah,
understand the role of a coach better. Can I do
absolutely.
that?
He was both a coach and a mentor.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Amazing. There's a question: how to integrate uh, coaching with new education policy so that our nation will be benefited?
I need some inputs on new education policy. Okay, so let's assume that the education policy gives some guidelines.
Yeah.
And what coaching can do is understand those guidelines and see what can you do to capitalize on that.
Right.
How can you leverage the guidelines that are given there? How can you leverage the inputs that are given there, which will help you to achieve the outcome that you want to achieve? I know it's too generic because I'm not conversant with those education guidelines. But if I can have more specific information, maybe whoever has that question, I can get on a one-on-one call and help the person out.
Finally, what is your message to anyone who wants to become a coach?
Okay. If you want to become a coach, all that is required is a little bit of patience because you have to be good in patience, you have to be good in listening skills. If you have these three attributes, you just have to get into a coach training program, get yourself accredited as a coach or certified as a coach, then you can start coaching anybody. Why that is required is because you have to understand the process of coaching. Because generally, by culture, we are very good in advising people. Advising is almost mentoring. So by default, we get into mentoring mode because the upbringing has been like that. My teachers have told me what to do. My parents have told me what to do. My supervisors told me what to do. And when you put yourself on the other side, if I'm a teacher and student comes to me, I'm expected to give solutions to him. If I'm a supervisor, I'm expected to give solutions to him because I have come from his level to this level. That's what he's expecting, so I give solutions. So either way you look at it, we step into mentoring mode. So we need to be very clear about what is the line between mentoring and coaching. What does it take for you to be an effective coach? That's where, if you can certify yourself to be a coach, that's only a question of facilitation, asking the right questions, have the right listening, and make sure you are able to declutter the person's mind. Because 90% of the cases that clients come to you, the mind is cluttered. And you can't blame them because they are into so many things. Personally, they have so many things. Professionally, they have so many things that are working in the mind. The environment adds a lot of muck to it. All this together makes him a muddled person. How can you get that muddled person to be clear? So churn that a little more. Help him to churn that. He is going to outsource his brain and mind, and you're going to be the outsourced brain and mind for him to look at. When that happens, you will see him getting a lot of clarity. So if you want to practice coaching, first step would be for you to enroll in some coaching program which will help you to become a coach. And the rest of it, you can chart your own path.
I am hoping Yuva becomes that platform even for new coaches to come in. Thank you so much, Mr. Suresh.
My pleasure.
And I now invite Prakash ji to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. Hearty welcome to all the participants. So really, thank you, Mr. Suresh Ramamurthy, for your excellent speech, which
My
has
pleasure.
given a great confidence for all the listeners and all the people who are going to listen to your speech will get great confidence for their changes. So I'm very happy that Suresh Ramamurthy, who is also a member of the International Coach Federation, who is with us and guiding us in the right spirit and give a good knowledge which he can share for the people to change in their life. I consider Suresh Ramamurthy is a great magician because he changes people to a great surprise from their present level. So it is a very great thing that we should know from that, that all the changes in the world is unavoidable. Hence, anyone has to update and capable enough to face the challenges before them on daily basis in their businesses. Especially in the corporate sector, the person at the top level has to equip themselves and update their skill or knowledge to be a successful and to retain their present position. So, as I heard from Suresh, the main thing that's I can't see my mistakes. That's the major problem. And when we can able to identify our mistakes, we can become a changed person and we can be fit enough to the society and to the level what we do. So it is so people like Suresh Ramamurthy will able to guide them in their right path to achieve their goal. So everything has to be immediate in the world and we cannot postpone the things. So every moment changes will happen and we will become invisible in the present competitive world if we are not take prompt and preventive action immediately. So at this juncture, persons like Suresh Ramamurthy is guiding force and will be of great help in taking a right decision for the best way to all the executives and the decision makers in the corporate sector, educational sectors, and much more areas to achieve their goals and also be a successful leaders in their respective fields and also in the society. So really, it's we are greatly blessed to hear Suresh Ramamurthy's speech, which has given us a great confidence for us to be in the industry or wherever the areas where we are. We can be a successful person by taking his guidance whenever we find any problems. I also thank all the leading personalities in various fields join today's session and grace this program with their presence. I also thank Mr. Yuva Badmanabhan for his great idea and for arranging this kind of Yuva 2.0 is an educational programs for the development in educational fields, which will be of great help for the development in the society at large. Thank you. I also thanks my all my colleagues, my team members, and especially Vinodji for his special efforts in making this happen and make it great success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for
sir.
this opportunity and all the best to the Yuva team and all the people who are here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste. God
Thank you.
bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to another 2 sessions. Stay with us. And there are 2 more stalwarts coming in tomorrow and day after. Thank you for being there. And as always, we have always kept it on time and ended it on time. Thank you for bringing in great discipline as well. A great discipline will lead us to a great nation. Thank you so much. Today
Thank
we
you.
close this effort here. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you very much.